I came associated with Stratford in around 1959. It was an announcement for a group who were interested in starting a school. And we met down at the Kilowatt Room, which is now Raiders, and it was a whole crowd of people. But we said we've got to have some finances if we start school. And everybody that's going to serve is going to have to give $1,000. And about 3/4 of them got up and walked out.
After we got together and formed a board, we were trying to come up with a name, and one of the doctors on the board proposed Stratford Academy after Stratford on Avon, and it was immediately accepted by all the board members.
We searched all around for a location, and then we found this place, and Dr. Hill was instrumental in acquiring the faculty.
Dr. Hill had been in the public school system and was familiar with who were good teachers, but not only good teachers, but good people. And I think that was one of the keys to the success of the school. They gave Stratford instant credibility from the get-go.
Many of the teachers whom I had at Stratford had been master teachers in the Bibb County system for 20 or 30 years. Mary Eva Harper, Guyton Carr, Joe B. Hill, Marvin Davis. These were real pros. And so I really do believe that I had one of the finest high school educations anyone could have had.
My father died 3 weeks after I started here. My mother was emotionally shattered, understandably, by the loss of my father at that time. And I had no guidance, and I recognized that I owe a lot to Dr. Hill and Mr. Davis and Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Davis for the role in guiding me and inspiring me at that point in my life.
Dr. Hill was a tremendous person. He was not only a good educator, but he was dearly beloved by all who knew him.
Dr. Hill was more of an outgoing person. He was a cut-up, I tell you, and he would not take on discipline of the students. He just was not the type that could spank them or anything, but now Mr. Davis could. And I'm telling you, when I'd go home at the end of the day, I'd be hurting from all those spankings he gave.
I began work at Stratford Academy July the 30th, 1969. Reba and I both were the two secretaries that were working there.
She sat up front as a receptionist, and I was back further. And I didn't get to know the students unless they were real, real good or real, real bad. And then they were sent my way to see Dr. Hill or Mr. Davis. And when Dr. Hill had called anybody in to discipline them, Diane Hensley used to creep up with her ear against that wall, listening to everything. And I told her, I said, one of these days, if I get mad with you, I'm going to tell on you. But I never did. I thought it was funny.
In the opening days of Stratford, that area that's a parking lot back there now was a grassy area, and there were some pine trees out there that needed to be removed to make way for an exercise area for physical education. A group of us boys in the 10th and 11th grades were out there. When we look over against the wall over there, and here is a very nice, huge pine stump. And it occurred to us as a group that it would make an interesting prank if we picked up the stump and threw it over the wall. And then after we did it, we were brushing our hands off, and finally somebody said, well, what are we going to say if we get caught? So one of us said, well, we'll just say that an eagle swooped down out of the sky, grabbed this stump as we watched, and deposited it on the other side of the wall. We were sitting there attentively in our chemistry class when Dr. Hill came storming in, mad as he could be. And he said, "What do you know about that stump over there?" And us boys did not say a word. That made him madder. He sputtered about that. "Who put that stump over there?" And it was a dramatic pause there in the chemistry classroom when a voice from the back of the room said, "An eagle did it." Nobody ever admitted to touching that stump. However, toward the end of the year, it came time to put the first annual together. And it occurred to somebody that we needed a school symbol to go with our annual. And finally, somebody said, "It's got to be an eagle." That's how the golden eagle came to be, the symbol of Stratford that it is today.
We played baseball at Luther Williams Field down in Central City Park and practiced there every afternoon, and played football at Henderson or Porter Stadium, which were the two public football stadiums in town. So it was a fun place to be. By the time I graduated in '74, Stratford not only owned this building, but 3 buildings which were on Bond Street and Orange Street. And so between classes, it was kind of like a college campus. We walked from this building to that building, and one of the greatest things about that was you had a lot more freedom and flexibility from being under teachers' eyes, and so we could pretty easily cut class, go right down that hill, have lunch at the Crystal, and get back up here before we got caught. So there were a lot of advantages to being right here in the center of everything really that was going on in Macon at the time.
I believe it was at the end of my junior year. Some Stratford students painted Sea Rock City on the roof of the mansion downtown, and it was visible all over Macon. If you've ever seen Sea Rock City signs, you know what this looked like. White letters on a barn red roof on this amazing mansion. They threw all the ladders up on the roof so that nobody could get up there. And I have never seen Joe Hill as mad. Really, I don't think I've ever seen anybody as mad as he was the day that he called us down into the courtyard, and he was standing up on the steps, the fire escape steps, and he said, "I will find out who did this if it's the last thing I do with the last breath in my body." And I mean, he went on and on and on. Of course, I had a pretty good idea of who had done it, but I couldn't say anything, and I kept my mouth shut, even to this day.
I arrived here in 1969. In fact, I came directly from one battlefield, Vietnam, to Macon, Georgia, the other one. And you know what? I enjoyed Vietnam, and I thoroughly enjoyed Stratford. It was a recommendation of friends that the kids come here. So all 3 of mine graduated from here. All 3 of them are college graduates. And all 3 of them had many memories of Stratford.
Dr. Fernandez was our team doctor and traveled to every Friday night football game. He was there with his little bag and his daughter following him around, but he was a Stratford man. And we've had some good stories about Dr. Fernandez as he was our athletic chairman. We talked about how we'd get our new football field cut and mowed every week. Dr. Fernandez showed up with 2 or 3 parents one Saturday morning with 4 lawnmowers, push lawnmowers, and that's the way we were going to cut our field. Well, quickly he realized that wouldn't do it. On Monday morning we had a brand new tractor, and certainly that's the way he did things. He made things happen.
In 19, it was either 70 or 71, we had over 1,200 students on Bond Street, and we were stepping all over each other, and there was no room to expand. At the time, George Peak donated us property out this way. A board member at the time, W.P. Thompson, did the plans for the school, and the school was completed in Christmas of '74.
There was no funds available to do anything except to accommodate classrooms for all the students we had and projected. Everything we could find to save money, we did it, and including using concrete block exterior walls.
About halfway through my senior year, they finished construction on Peak Road, and they gave the senior class the option of deciding whether everybody would stay at this campus or everybody would move out to Peak Road, and we voted 100% to stay down here.
I sat out front when we moved out here, and I called the absentees, and they came to the sick room with headaches and sometimes faking, and so I gave them, best I could, took their temperature. Sometimes they would slip in the bathroom and turn on the hot water and put the thermometer under there. And I caught some students cutting and writing their own notes and having their boyfriends call in that they were going to be picked up at a certain time. So I would go tell Griff Etheridge, and we caught quite a few. Maybe I'm telling tales. But a lot happened up there in that front office.
Before the track around the football field was paved, Roy Ficklin had a Mustang, and Roy used to see how fast he could go around the track. And I think he had Grady's blessings, according to Roy. Now, that's kind of hard to believe. I think the deal was that Roy could run it as long as he paid for anything that he broke.
When Henry Tiff became headmaster, he really offered me many different opportunities. I think what has kept me here is that if there was something that I was beginning to get tired of or bored with, and I needed something to change, then all I had to do was ask.
Henry was dearly beloved. He was a very easygoing person. And if you went to his office at 8 o'clock in the morning, you could always find him with a Coca-Cola with a bag of salted peanuts, pouring the peanuts in the Coca-Cola and shaking it up and drinking it. One of my favorite Henry stories is, even today, I have a place down on the Georgia coast, and every time I get ready to leave, I tell my wife, I say, well, pack my Henry bag, and that means go get a Kroger sack and put whatever I'm gonna take into my Henry bag, because it didn't matter where Henry was going, whether it was to New York, San Francisco, or wherever. That was the way he went. He carried his stuff in a Kroger sack or a Piggly Wiggly sack or whatever. And I also played golf with him once or twice, but I can remember him hitting the ball, and there would be a lake on the course, and while he was waiting on everybody else to hit, he had a fold-up rod and reel that he'd pull out of his golf bag, and he would go fish while everybody else was hitting. But that was just Henry.
Henry had a quality in which he could listen to anyone, and he would listen to anyone and be positive about it. He didn't always agree with you, but he usually wanted to allow you to take what you wanted to do and make it fit within the Stratford vision somehow or another. I never knew him to absolutely say no to an idea. And I think he created a spirit at this school that still exists, that we can do those sort of things. His wife, Ann, who also taught here and was college counselor, was to me just sort of the intellectual engine that kept this school going. She was always coming with ideas. She was always bringing information about what other schools were doing and really challenging us. And I think they set a tone that still exists here. And it's unusual, I think, a school has a headmaster and wife that involved both in the school and for that long of a period of time.
He got sick on like a Thursday. He had not felt well for like a week or so, and he was admitted to the hospital, and basically he died within 2 or 3 days. And of course, everybody, the whole community was just in shock. We had a memorial service in the gym for Henry, and I've never seen a bigger crowd at anything that we've ever had here than was here that day to pay their tribute to him. And there weren't just people from Macon, there were people from all over the state and all over the South. It was just a traumatic experience, one of which it took the school a number of years to recover from. But you know, the school survived and the school's doing well, but those two really did a bunch to make Stratford what it is today.
One of my fond memories, I would take teams to math counts every year. Normally it's an 8th grade competition. And one year I had a group of 7th graders. So I went in to talk to Henry Tift, and I said, Henry, I want to take a group of 7th graders this year. I said, I know they'll be competing against 8th graders, but it'll give them really good experience. So when I was in the coaches meeting, I was, saying, oh, I only brought a 7th grade team. And then at the end, they announced the winners, and my 7th grade team won first place, and then they won as 8th graders too. So that group of students was always very high on my fond memories list.
Most people don't know But right after Dr. Hill hired me to be the head baseball coach, there was a guy in Macon who is a monument in Macon named Billy Henderson. And he had left old Willingham High School and went to Clark Central High School in Athens, and he wanted to come back to Macon. Well, here I am, never been a high school baseball coach, only coached the grammar school team and helped with the varsity team. But Dr. Hill told Mr. Henderson when he applied for the job that the job had been filled and stuck with me, when he could have reneged on that and everybody would have understood. But he saw something in me that, I don't even think I saw in myself.
Our emphasis always, obviously, was to teach the sport. We were hard on them. We would knock them down. We'd pick them up. Life's not always easy, but we thought that discipline was important. We thought that work ethic was important. Working within a group was important. But number one always was the academic end of it.
I remember going to ball games, but I also remember the plays and the band concerts, and I always just thought it was really neat to teach at a school that actually had a fine arts day, because that's a little bit unusual.
The talent show is an event where the kids can get out and showcase their talents, and we have so many kids that are so talented in so many different areas. Many times I didn't know that, these people could play a guitar and sing like they could sing, or play a piano and do what they could do. So it's been a great event, and it's a lot of fun. It's something that the kids and the faculty really look forward to.
I came to Stratford in the fall of 1981. It's kind of a strange way in which I got out here. I was working at Mercer in the summer at a debate workshop. And some of the kids there were from Stratford, and about the second day they came up and said, "You're going to be our debate coach next year." And I said, "I am." I had never heard anything about this. Then around early September, I get a call from someone I'd never heard of, Henry Tiff, and he said he was interested in talking to me about becoming debate coach at Stratford. And I came out, and I remember him telling me what he was interested in, and I said, "Well, this is kind of what I would want if I came out there." And Henry said, "You got it. Can you be out here next week, Monday?" And when someone gives you what you want, you don't say no.
There's one story that I love to tell. There was one parent many years ago, a good friend, traveled with me a lot. I taught her children. And whenever she would pass me in the hall, she just kind of pinched me in my stomach, when I was getting to be a little bit rotund. Well, one day, she was walking up from the back of the building, up from the office area, and she saw this male body bent over at the counter. She thought it was Andy Lawson, and she came up to that male body and she gave a big pinch in a certain place on the back end. Well, it turned out not to be Andy Lawson. It turned out to be Mike Kelly. And I don't think I've ever seen a woman or a parent as embarrassed in my life. She didn't know that I was about 10 or 12 steps behind her, but that was one of the best laughs I've had at Stratford in a long time.
Ann Tiff and I used to put practical jokes on each other. And she put pictures up of me all over the building with my long hair saying, "Would you want this man to teach your children?" That was kind of mean. When I was principal, I will never forget, and I don't remember the boys' names that did it because it's been so long ago, I didn't think I would ever forget, but I remember walking in this front door one morning and finding my office out here in the lobby. They had taken all the furniture out of my office and restructured my office right out here in the lobby. It looked just like my office, except there were no walls, So I stayed out there all day.
We kid a lot of times and talk about the Stratford family, but when people have problems, we tend to rally together and help each other.
We had almost 100 people in our class, and even now that group stays in touch with a lot of the teachers that we had.
They just stick together at Stratford. Some of them goes and some of them come back, and they walk ready and they still stick together.
My oldest daughter, at the age of 42, expired from cancer of the breast. For the last 2 to 3 to 4 weeks of her life, and for the last moments, they were always in bed with her, some 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 girls. They were Stratford graduates also, because that's where the friends were. And as Lisa, my daughter, said when she died, she used to say, there's only one thing you got to do to die. And she'd say, live. So let's have fun. And they'd sit up in that bed and crack jokes. And so it's just been a memorable experience. I have had an experience in life with Stratford that I don't think can improve my life anymore. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
There have been a lot of faculty who've gone through here who have been very important to me. One in particular, and that was Mr. Brake. And I will never forget him telling me something when I was the first year or so that I was here. We were standing in the lounge, and some new teacher walked in and said something about how the kids loved him and et cetera, talking about just how popular he was or something. He just really been fairly intolerable. and after he left, Mr. Brake turned to me, and these are words I will never forget, and he said to me, Griff, it's not important what they think of you now. It's what they think of you 10 years from now. And I have never forgotten that, and I've always felt like that was a fantastic message for any new teacher. You know, don't worry about what they think about you now. If you do your job and if you're good at what you do, then 10 years from now they'll say, sure, I'm glad he was my teacher. And that's kind of what I've been after.
I don't think there's any doubt, and you're all fearful of leaving people out, but when you talk of Stratford, Dr. John Paul Jones, Dr. Bill Shirley, Dr. Hugh Smithson, those are 3 names that jump right at you. And they certainly had the vision to start Stratford and continued. And of course, Dr. Smithson is still there, and having our field house named for Dr. John Paul Jones. He was very valuable in what he did for Stratford. And then I think you look at the leaders we've had. Dr. Joe B. Hill, Marvin Davis, and Marvin Davis taught me more about the school setting and school environment than anybody. And then the Henry Tift era, you know, as consistent as you'll ever have for that time period, over 20 years leading Stratford. And the Hank Battle era, you know, today we've got a lot of facilities, thank goodness to Hank Battle. And then we're all so excited. I don't think I've seen enthusiasm like I see now with Dr. Bob Vito coming on board. So those eras and the people have been very important at Stratford.
I just wouldn't like to be nowhere else but Stratford. People's goes and come, and when they come back, they run to hug at me, showing their love to me, and that really make me feel good.
I've always been proud of Stratford, and I'm still proud of Stratford.
People ask me all of the time, what are the things, or what is the thing that I'm most proud of? And most of them are alluding to what we did in baseball, and I'm certainly proud of the 9 state championships that I won or whatever, but the thing that I am most proud of are the students who've come through Stratford Academy. I'm proud of them and what they've accomplished, what they've given back to the community.
Just seeing the results of people like Buster Black and students that have attended here and that are so successful, and going to Bill Argo and letting him fix my teeth when I remember when he was in the 1st grade, and it's interesting to see them succeed in what they want to do. It's been my greatest satisfaction.
When I was here in 1962, Mrs. Hill showed a movie from the 1930s about the Rothschild family of investment bankers. This was a family of 5 brothers who came from the ghetto and formed an international banking association, which today would be called a conglomerate, across Europe. In the 80s, I had occasion to be in Zurich, Switzerland on business, dealing with Rothschild's bank. I was shown to the highest levels of the bank, and one of the officers took me into the boardroom. He sat me down at a table and he said, "Just make this your office for the day." I'm spreading out my things on the table, And I look up on the walls around this room, and here are portraits of the 5 brothers, portraits that were painted in the 18th century, of the 5 brothers that I saw in that film right upstairs, that Mrs. Hill showed us, to inspire us, to show us in some small way what we could do. Would I have gotten that anywhere else? I don't think so. I don't think so. Doesn't that make it seem like it was meant to be and that there was a purpose in my going to Stratford? I can't see it any other way.
Yeah.